The idea of a shared cinematic universe isn't a new one. They've had, TV shows having spin-offs that kind of combine their series to have, this shared experience. As far back as you can even look at All in the Family and The Jeffersons. The Jeffersons started in All in the Family, and then they became their own TV show. A little more recently, just look at Angel and Buffy, or Buffy and Angel. Angel was a spin-off from Buffy. Torchwood was a spin-off from Doctor Who, and they had that same shared universe for the most part. But it really wasn't until 2008 when Iron Man came out that Marvel Studios really utilized the advantages of this kind of cinematic experience of making this huge cinematic universe. And that's what they've done for the past 8 years. Marvel Studios has used the advantages of this shared universe to really create this huge encompassing cinematic universe with movies and cable TV shows and Netflix TV shows to really get where they are now, and they've done it successfully. But because of this success, it started this trend in Hollywood that basically all the movies that come out have to be huge, expanded franchises. They have to be a trilogy, or they have to have multiple parts of the movie, and they have to, have spin-offs of the movie. And all of the really big blockbuster movies are doing that. X-Men is doing it, which is Marvel, but it's not Marvel Studios, it's Fox. But X-Men is doing it. They have, the basic X-Men films, and then they're having things like Deadpool and Gambit that are kind of branching off, that are still in the same X-Men universe, but they're their own separate entities. DC's doing it right now. They're trying to build the DC cinematic universe with their movies, but they've already established that kind of universe with their TV shows, with Arrow and Flash and Supergirl. They're, expanding that universe. But it actually doesn't just stop there with superhero movies. A lot of the other blockbusters are doing it to the point where they even had plans. I don't know if they're still going through with this, but there was a plan to make a 21 Jump Street Men in Black crossover shared cinematic universe, which I think was kind of a dumb idea, but maybe it would have been great. I don't know. We haven't seen it. It was just an idea they were tossing around, but that's the kind of impact that the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe has had on Hollywood, that it started this trend not only of just tons of superhero movies and comic book movies, but also these large franchises and expanding universes, no matter what kind of movie it is. So because of that, specifically with Marvel Studios and, DC and Fox making the X-Men movies, there's definitely an oversaturation of superhero movies. There are just a lot of superhero movies coming out every year, all year. And a lot of people don't like that. And whether you like the movies or not, that's just a fact. There are tons of them coming out every year, and there's no signs of them letting up anytime soon. But ultimately what Marvel Studios is doing with their specific universe, and what's kind of happening with the other production companies, is back in the day, way back in the day, before my time, when comics were first becoming popular, I imagine that they had, the comic books, the single issues of Iron Man, the single issues of Captain America, and then eventually they joined them together with other superheroes making the Avengers, and then holy crap, they're in the same universe. And then after that, Iron Man may show up in a Captain America comic, and then Captain America might show up in an Iron Man comic, and it just blew up from there. They had more and more heroes, they had more and more superheroes coming in, joining forces for different issues, either for single superhero issues may coming in as a side character, or they may be huge joined efforts like the Avengers or the Justice League. And there were tons of them. And just like now, there are tons of movies, because Marvel Studios is essentially using the medium of movies and television to make that same kind of narration that comic books made a long time ago, that now is just the status quo of comic books. But that's the kind of narration that Marvel Studios is creating with their cinematic universe, and the kind of narration that DC Entertainment is starting to do, and other production companies are trying to make that same kind of cinematic universe. But because of that, there are tons of them. Just like I'm sure a long time ago people thought, wow, there's so many comics, there's so many superhero comics. Well, of course they are, and that's actually one of the biggest reasons I haven't read as many comics as I had, is that if I want to jump into a series, there's so much I have to read. and it's really intimidating. And I can imagine the same being as, for instance, as the Marvel Cinematic Universe goes on, that's going to be a little more intimidating for someone who, for whatever reason, hasn't seen any of the Marvel movies. They might want to go see Doctor Strange, or they might want to go see Avengers Infinity War, but they might not have the context of the past films. But it is interesting that people are claiming to be tired of the superhero movies when just recently the last superhero movie to come out was Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, and it had a huge record-breaking opening weekend. Everyone went and saw it, everyone paid their tickets to go see it, and then after that the weekends weren't that great for the movie, but essentially everyone wanted to go see Batman vs. Superman on the big screen. So just because of that, and I'm sure it's going to be the same with the rest of the movies coming out, because when you break it down, it is a business that these companies are doing. Marvel Studios is a business, DC Entertainment is a business, and they're trying to make money, and they're going to continue to try to make money from these titles. So because of that, and because we're going to go see them, especially me, I'm going to go see them and have my opinion on it. There's no real sign of the superhero movies slowing down anytime soon, which, whether you like them or not, that's just how it is. Whether you like it or not, that's just how it is. You may not like the superhero movies, you may love the superhero movies, but they're not going anywhere. They're not going away anytime soon. Now, another reason people might be tired of this trend is because a lot of the, let's say, the superhero movies aren't all that good. Now, for Marvel Studios, in my opinion, they've been solid from the get-go. There's been, Incredible Hulk wasn't that great, but the rest of them and their TV shows and their movies have been solid. Whereas DC Entertainment, again, in my opinion, Man of Steel wasn't that strong. Batman vs. Superman wasn't that strong. Because when you look at, just using Marvel Studios and DC Entertainment as examples, when you look at Marvel Studios, from 2008, they've been patiently building this universe with Iron Man, then Incredible Hulk, then Thor, then Captain America, then Avengers, then breaking it out more, then adding in Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man, and soon to be Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and Black Panther. They're slowly and methodically building this universe, as well as with the TV shows, with everything that they're putting into it. They're building it brick by brick, staying patient, and it's been 8 years since they started, and yeah, they've put a lot into the universe over those 8 years. They've been busy working on it, but again, the only reason they're where they are now with their success is because they've patiently been building it over the past 8 years. Whereas you look at DC Entertainment, they came out with Man of Steel, and then immediately not immediately, it was a few years between, they came out with Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, which, first off, that's 2 titles for one movie because they wanted to tell more than one story, and they just pushed everything they could into Batman vs. Superman because they wanted the success of Marvel Studios without actually putting in the time and the patience and building that universe. And that's, in my opinion, one of the reasons Batman vs. Superman was just such a disappointment, or was just such a letdown, because they tried to put everything they could in that movie and it just didn't pan out. So it really just comes down to patience, whereas DC Entertainment isn't being patient. They want the success of Marvel Studios, but they want it now without putting in the groundwork, without putting in the work into it to slowly and patiently build that universe. But that's the same case for a lot of other productions who are trying to do the same thing. Basically, my argument being is that in 2008, Marvel Studios started this trend of utilizing the idea of a shared cinematic universe with their films and their TV shows. And because they were successful as a business, so many other productions have tried to do the same. Every movie that comes out now that's a big blockbuster are franchises. They have multiple movies, they have spin-offs. DC Entertainment is basically trying to do the same thing that Marvel Studios has done, but they're not doing it, in my opinion, as well. And because of that, there is this huge trend of superhero movies, because that's what's popular. But because of that, there's been this trend and this oversaturation of superhero movies and them being put out there. And, I say that it's the way that Marvel Studios is trying to tell this narrative of these characters in this universe. It's the same narrative that started with comic books, but comic books, as popular as they can be, have never been as mainstream as movies and televisions. movies and television shows. Movies and television shows, even if you never go see the movies, at some point you're going to see a trailer for a movie or a TV show that's coming out, and you're going to know of and you're more than likely going to know of its existence. So the point I'm making is the pros and cons of the influence that the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Marvel Studios has had on Hollywood, the movie industry as a whole. They started with this shared universe and they were successful in building it, and because of that, there has been just an oversaturation of superhero movies, whether they're good or bad, and TV shows and big franchises that are expanding and having spin-offs and doing what they think Marvel Studios is doing. And I would sadly put that on part of the cons of the influence that the MCU has had, whereas in the pros, they're really utilizing this idea of the shared cinematic universe and telling these stories just like they would have told, just like they told the stories in comic books, having them overarch into other titles and telling stories over multiple issues. Now they're telling stories over multiple movies and TV shows. So there are definitely pros and cons to what Marvel has done with their cinematic universe and how it's affecting movies as a whole. Whether you like all of these superhero movies or not, it's just a fact that there are a lot of them. There are a lot of superhero movies. There are a lot of superhero TV shows, especially within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There are, I think last time I counted, 13 movies out that are just out right now, plus 4 TV shows that are currently running, with definitely more that are already slated to come out. The next one is Luke Cage to come out in September. So there is definitely an oversaturation, but it's a side effect of the narrative that especially Marvel Studios is trying to tell, of having these overarching stories in this shared cinematic universe, really using the advantages of that to tell this overarching story. How do you feel about this idea of this shared cinematic universe, both with the MCU, with the DCEU, with all of the movies and TV shows that are trying to do similar things? What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments. Follow me on all the internets and check me out on Patreon if you'd like to support more of my content. And subscribe to my channel so we can geek out some more. Thanks for watching and have fun. So Captain America, Thor, Hulk.